Former Vice President Joe Biden making waves with his criticism of Amazon for reportedly paying zero in federal income taxes, tweeting out this morning, "I have nothing against Amazon, but no company pulling in billions of dollars of profits should pay a lower tax rate than firefighters and teachers. We need to reward work, not just wealth." And now Amazon is responding to that. Quote, "We paid $2.6 billion in corporate taxes since 2016. We pay every penny we owe. Congress designed tax laws to encourage companies to reinvest in the American economy. We have $200 billion in investments since 2011 and 300,000 U.S. jobs. Assume VP Biden's complaint is with the tax code, not with Amazon." Now, here's the catch to Biden's statement. The tax credits Amazon uses were actually supported by the Obama administration. So is Joe Biden guilty of hypocrisy for jumping on the anti-Amazon bandwagon?
I think in some ways he is. You know, he was vice president when some of those policies were implemented, and that statement from Amazon is pretty strong. It's not exactly like they're breaking the law here, David, but we're seeing something bigger here on the side of the Democrats. For anybody who wants to get that nomination and be able to move to the final round versus Trump, they are going to have to go more left to appeal to, to appeal to the voting base. And so basically we've seen Joe Biden flip-flop on a number of things. Just the other day, when first he said China wasn't a threat, now he's saying China is a threat. He's backtracked on abortion, and now he's looking at the tax code, tax credits that he supported, and saying there's a problem.
You're spot on, Jackie. This is the end of the Democratic Party as we know it. Mark this date. Joe Biden has gone straight extreme left now. It's funny, you know. It's almost laughable to see how they go back and forth and just trying to go off of their polls, their fake polls, and judging the people. And you see, you already got 20 Democrats running. Half of them are just there to raise money through these funds, and then once they lose and drop out the race, they don't have to give the money back to the people, which is ridiculous. But I can go on and on and on about this, but, you know, who's next?
All right, well, let's not get carried away here about this being the end of the Democratic Party. What I found, I mean, no Democrat is going to get punished for going against Amazon in the next 12 months. So, again, as a political statement, it's fine. What I found pretty amusing about Amazon's response, we're just doing what's within the law here. Reminds me of another guy who took advantage of the tax law by declaring bankruptcy on all of his losses on real estate and said, "I was just doing with what's in the law here." The difference is Amazon then points out we create hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of jobs. That other guy was just helping himself and his family.
By the way, Gasparino is very jealous of your Trump invitation. I just have to say, he called in.
No, I'm not trying to beat Gasparino there.
Well, remember, Adam, these laws, if you will, were put in place for a reason, and Amazon is taking advantage of them. But they're not taking advantage. You know, everyone thinks of now these Amazons like their daddy Warbucks on the Monopoly board, going off to their yacht. Companies like Amazon and Netflix and Walmart are some of the greatest wealth creators that we've ever had. How many small companies does Amazon allow to be on their platform and sell their goods through? This is a company that pays hundreds of millions of dollars, not only in the federal taxes, but in state and local taxes. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars for Medicare, for Social Security. They enhance everyone's lives. My gosh, you know how convenient it is to be able not to leave the house and get something the next day? I would be fine if Amazon just created jobs and paid zero in federal income taxes.
All right, well, Joe Biden isn't the only 2020 candidate taking aim at Amazon. Bernie Sanders, along with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, are now criticizing the company for its new credit card that comes with a 28% interest rate. Amazon, of course, claiming that the card is meant to help those who have no credit score or a bad score. But Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders say this is just the latest example of the company's corporate greed. Does Sanders have a point here? Is 28% too high of interest to pay for this company?
No, these are people with bad credit or no credit, which means they're probably not going to pay it back. Come on, guys. Where are we going? Listen,
I'll say it a little differently.
Hold on, let me finish, please, because I have not always had good credit. I've had bad credit, too. Probably I brag bad credit now, but I don't expect someone to give me a credit card and not charge me interest. I don't have to pay the interest if I pay the money back.
Well, I was just going to say 28% is extremely high unless your alternative is a payday loan or a loan shark, in which case
But
it
that's the
isn't that high,
population we're
so-
talking about, though.
Yeah.
That's
But
the
also,
That's exactly the population.
I've
I
read more
understand.
about this. There is an incentive there to teach these people how to borrow more responsibly. You can put money down, use this credit card as a debit card, and sort of work your way back to getting back into the credit game if you've ruined your credit or had troubles with it in the past. So there actually is an educational element to it here. It just will.
Although I would argue that you're probably better off never taking money from
Right.
a credit card. I mean, because it's a
Agreed.
terrible. You have to always try to work things out. Maybe downsize your house or sell off some of your valuable goods. Sell off your watches.
cheaper
etc.
beer.
Exactly. I mean, that's the last thing you want to do is borrow.
That's
from
what
your-
I would do.
But there is a cost for bad credit. I mean, there's a cost. This is a system of costs. You know, you have supply and you have demand, and when there is a lot of demand for something, the price of it goes up, and that's what's happening with bad credit, right, Gary?
Yeah, exactly. Look, we should be thankful that Amazon is willing to take the risk to do this. This is what the free market's all about. You know, as you know, everyone person on the panel would point out. You don't want nobody wants to pay 28%. So if you don't do that, change your life. But if you're willing to do that, if you need emergency money, you know, something like that, thankfully Amazon is offering it. And by the way, the rate, this 28%, it's not too much lower than all of us here are paying on our Amex and a MasterCard if we don't pay it.
I don't borrow on
Not
that
me.
either.